Hi, everyone. Today, I would like to discuss the inflation that we've had in this country in recent years. The reason I want to discuss it is because few people understand why we had inflation, where it came from. Most importantly, most people don't know that it was preventable, that there was no reason for it whatsoever, that it was man made or woman made. So, first, let's start with what inflation is. What is inflation? Inflation is very, very simple. Inflation is only the following: it occurs when the amount of money in the economy increases at a faster pace than the amount of goods and services in the economy. So, think of it this way: this is a simple price formula. Consider that you have 100 goods in the economy or services. In other words, things that are sold, things that you purchase, things that the money is spent on. There are 100 units of that. Similarly, in this economy, there's 100 units of money with which to buy those things. So you've got 100 units of money purchasing 100 goods or services. Okay, so if that's the case, what is the average price of a unit of good or services of each of the 100 units of goods or services? Well, if you have $100 in spending divided by 100 goods that it purchases, the average price would be $1. $1 per good or service. Well, what happens if the quantity of money increases from 100 units to 200 units? You then have twice the amount of money purchasing the same amount of goods and services, 100 units. So 200 divided by 100 is on average $2. So as you see, if you double the money supply, prices double. In a growing economy, the quantity of goods and services will generally increase every year. Let's say it increases 10% a year, way more than it does or will, but let's take a nice, simple, even number. If it increases 10% a year, prices should fall roughly 10%, forget if it's 9% or 11%, per year. Okay, well, that is what would happen if we didn't print money. The only reason that prices rise year by year, the only reason things get more expensive, on the whole, I'm not talking about particular good in short supply that could rise in price. I'm talking about the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, the average price of all goods and services. The only reason that increases in price is because we add more money to the economy as the economy grows. So if the goods and services grow 10%, but the amount of money that is created and put into the economy also grows 10%, well, prices stay where they are. What happens in our economy is that they increase the amount of money faster than we can increase goods and services. And so if we have starting with $100 in spending and 100 units of goods and services, if we increase the number of goods and services by 10%, but the quantity of money increases by 20%, well, we have inflation. And that's precisely what we have in this country and in every other country. That's why we have inflation, only because they keep putting more money into the economy faster than we can put new goods and services in it. Who is they that I keep referring to? Well, there's only one source of new and additional money. Well, there's only one source of money: the government. the government central bank. The government has laws saying that the only money we can use is its own money that it creates. Now, if you had your own money and your own printing press, wouldn't you keep creating new dollars so that you can benefit? Well, that's what the government does. It keeps pumping out new and additional money so it can benefit. Without going into details, when the government prints new money, it benefits from that because that new money it has while prices are the same. It's the new money that causes prices to eventually rise, but when the government prints it, prices haven't yet risen. So it gets increased purchasing power at our expense. We get the increased prices from its spending. And so it's our loss is its gain. So that is the only reason prices rise. The government prints money. It has all kinds of reasons for doing this. And expert economists will tell you that there are reasons we would otherwise have deflation, which is false. We need it to help economic growth. We need new and additional credit. That's false. Quite the opposite. There is zero reason to print money. The economy would grow and do much better without it. The only reason it does it is so that the government can have additional purchasing power at our expense. So, how did we have inflation in recent years? Well, during the pandemic that was created by the government, first it created the virus itself, and then it shut down the economy for no reason against all medical advice that existed at that time. It shut down the economy, threw everyone out of work, and then felt it had to pay everyone for not working. And by the way, just give a lot of money, billions of dollars, to companies to compensate them for their losses that the government created. The wildest, most stupid thing economically I've ever seen. But so the government printed started under Trump, it wasn't just Biden. Between Trump and Biden, the government spent $6 trillion. That's a lot of money to add to forget what it was, 20 trillion or so economy at the time. And so that new and additional money everyone took and they spent it. And when they spent it, that drove up prices. So the new money competed with existing money and prices were driven higher. That is why we had the inflation in recent years. That's the only reason, as I keep repeating. It's very important to emphasize that. There is no other reason. The reason the professional economists, the government, the central bank, Janet Yellen, everyone else gave and the media was mainly supply chain issues. Well, that's false. It's false in two ways. First, it's false because even if it's supply chains, the government created the supply chain problems by shutting down the economy, so it still created that problem. But mostly, that's a false argument. Supply chains did not cause prices to rise. They did not cause prices to rise. Was there a shortage of some goods and services? Yes, but not a lot. And not in the way that they tell you. For example, they said we're in short supply of computer chips. We were not. We were in short supply of some common popular chips. The total supply of computer chips increased. We were in short supply of some things for some periods of time, and then supply caught up. And besides, supply chain shortages doesn't mean there's a shortage of goods. It means that new and additional goods aren't coming through as quickly, but they eventually still came through. All in all, the total supply of goods and services, remember our denominator of 100 units, that did not decrease during the pandemic. I repeat, it did not decrease during the pandemic. Please see my link below. I have a link to Fact Court, where I prove this in detail. I show the actual supply of all of the goods and materials that the media and the experts told us we're in short supply of. I showed you that we were not generally in short supply. I also show you that total production, i.e., physical and services production, increased in the form of an industrial production indicator and in terms of real GDP, which is counting real units. Those did not decrease, they increased. So if we have a denominator of supply that did not decrease, but instead increased, then shortages cannot be the explanation for inflation. The only explanation is that there was spending that increased faster than the production of goods and services increased. Lastly, it's commonly said that businesses were responsible for jacking up prices. It's a common argument, but it's stupid. If businesses could jack up prices, why wouldn't they do it every other year? Why wouldn't they do it all the time? Why wouldn't they jack them up more than they supposedly jack them up? Why only 7%? Why not go to 10, 15, 100%? Why not do that every year? The answer is because they can't, and they didn't do it during the pandemic. They increased prices because there was that additional demand in terms of money from the spending. So it was consumers that bid up the prices. Quick lesson. You're a business selling whatever. Let's say you're selling burgers. You're selling a $10 burger. Okay, $10, you're making a decent living. What happens if you lower the price to $5? Well, you have a lot more demand. People want it. You don't have enough burgers to sell, and you probably run out of burgers. Plus, you want to charge the maximum that you can, so you're at least going to charge the market price. Okay, well, if you and everyone else raise the market price to $15 or $20, what happens? There is not enough money for everyone to buy as many burgers at that higher price. So you're going to sell fewer burgers and you're going to take in less money overall. You're going to price your burger where it's optimal, where you can charge as much as possible, but you sell the highest volume that's possible. So that's why things are priced the way they are. That goes for the whole economy. So go back to our price formula. If things in the economy are selling for $1 on average, remember $100 in spending divided by 100 goods, how can businesses in the economy charge $2 or $1.50 or even $1.10? The same $100 can't buy as many goods. They'll sell fewer goods, they'll make less money. The only way prices can go higher, I mean, forget what businesses do actually. You can't sell the same 100 goods for more than $100. It's mathematically impossible. There's not enough money to have the same number of goods sold at higher prices. So it simply cannot happen. So the only way prices can be bid up is by people spending more money, spending new and additional money from the central bank. That's the only answer. As Milton Friedman said, inflation is everywhere and always a monetary phenomenon. That really means that as long as the economy is growing. If the supply is reduced, yes, that could send prices higher, but that's not usually the case, so forget about it. Inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. That explains the inflation we've had the last 5 years. It explains the inflation this country has always had. Every day, every year, they're printing new money, pumping it out so that the government and politicians can gain at your expense. We can stop it. Just as you're upset about whatever else you're protesting about, get upset about money printing, which, by the way, harms the poor the most. Why don't we protest money printing and cry for the government to quit printing money so that everything we buy can fall in price year after year after year, as it used to? That could start happening tomorrow, or at least next year, if we did that, if we could get the government to stop printing money. Okay, thank you for listening. Please see more information in the comments below, as mentioned before. Feel free to leave additional comments, and please like and subscribe. Thanks very much.